What's up, guys? It's your boy David C, back once again with another video. So what we're gonna do today, guys, we're gonna take out the engine out of the C10. As you know, a few months ago I took it to go get tuned and I had a few mishaps with the engine. I had two collapsed lifters, I have a broken piston. So now it's time to take that motor out. Either I'm gonna get it fixed and get it redone, or I'm just gonna go ahead and buy another crate motor. I'm still on the fence about it, but either way, something's gonna happen and we're gonna get this thing running. So guys, like I said, today what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and take this motor out, and I'm gonna take you step by step on how to do that. As you can see, guys, I got the engine hoist ready to go. The first thing that I gotta do is take off the cold air intake, and then I'm gonna have to take off the manifold, intake manifold. And then after that, guys, I bought a lift plate that goes mounted in the place of this intake manifold, and that's what's gonna allow me to pull the engine up. But before I do any of that, I have to undo my fuel pressure regulator. I gotta get my oil catch can out the way. I gotta undo all my wiring here for the spark plugs. I gotta take off the headers, probably pull off the radiator, take these headers off on this side. So yeah, guys, I got plenty of work to do before I get started. So I pretty much already loosened up the cold air intake, so I'm gonna go ahead and take it off. Now what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to go ahead and start taking the headers off, take these wires off. That way nothing will be in my way when I'm trying to take off all of the stuff. And now, guys, I gotta take off the headers on the passenger side. So let's go ahead and get into that. So now, guys, I gotta take off the spark plugs. Otherwise, they're gonna break when I try to take the headers off. So let's go ahead and do that first, and then we'll move on to the next step. I got lucky, I was able to take off the header. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take off the spark plug on the passenger side, and let's get into that. Alright, guys, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to disconnect the radiator hoses. I already pre-drained the radiator a couple of days ago. So now all I have to do is undo the radiator hoses to get them out of the way so we can pull this motor out. Alright, guys, so now we're going to move to the driver's side. I got all 4 spark plugs out on the driver's side. Now we move on to the next step. Alright guys, now it's time to take off the headers on the driver's side. Alright guys, so as you can see, I got the headers off on the driver's side. Also, got the header off on the passenger side. The next thing I'm gonna do is finish disconnecting my radiator hoses. Get everything out of the way. Get this wiring harness out of the way. Disconnect my fuel lines at the regulator, disconnect my oil catch can lines, and we'll be almost ready to pull this engine out, guys. Stay tuned. One other thing I'm also forgetting, guys, before I go any further, I gotta take off the serpentine belt so I can take off my alternator, because otherwise it's gonna be in the way. Let's go. The next thing is to go ahead and take all the wiring, cut all the zip ties, and go ahead and remove the wiring out of the way, so when we pull the motor out, nothing will get snagged up. So the next thing, guys, is remove all the plugs to the sensors, get all the wiring out of the way, and I might have to go underneath, disconnect the starter, disconnect the crank sensor, and then we'll be ready to look around one more time for a final look and see if we're ready to pull this engine out. Alright guys, so now I'm gonna have to go underneath the truck. I'm gonna have to jack it up a little bit and go see if there's everything is clear, and make sure that nothing is obstructing the motor from coming out. And the last thing I'm gonna do is take off the intake manifold, so that way we can put the lifting plate on there. Alright guys, so we're halfway there. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go under the truck, make sure everything's clear, take off the connector to the crank sensor, and just make sure everything's clear, so that way when we pull this motor out, nothing's gonna snag up and try to render it from coming out. Alright guys, so I went underneath the truck, I took loose everything that needed to be taken loose. I made sure that nothing is gonna get hung up once we start pulling this engine out. So now all that's left to do is take off the intake manifold and just make sure all the wiring and stuff is completely out of the way. And then I'm gonna go ahead and mount my lift plate, which I will show you here in a minute. And then we'll be ready to take this engine out, guys. So let's go. So pretty much, guys, here's the lift plate that I ordered from Amazon. It had pretty good reviews on it, so I don't know, we'll see how it does. And pretty much what it is this plate right here. It comes with bolts, so you can bolt it on. And pretty much the lift plate goes where the intake manifold is. And you use these holes to put your motor hoist on there. Usually I probably will use the middle one, and that way it picks up the engine evenly. And that's gonna be next after we take everything else off, guys. So now that everything is out of the way up on top, I'm gonna look behind the motor and make sure all my sensors are unplugged, make sure all the wiring is out of the way, and then I'll start taking off the intake manifold. Alright guys, so now it's time to take the intake manifold out. It's almost the final process in order to take this motor out. So let's go ahead and get into that. And let's get that thing out of there. Took out the intake manifold. We're pretty much almost ready to pull this engine out. I'm gonna check it one more time to make sure nothing's in the way, nothing's hindering this motor from coming out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now, guys. Alright guys, so we're ready to put on the pickup plate. Now I basically gotta unbolt the valley cover, and then all I need to do is put that pickup plate on there, and we should be ready to go after I take out the two bolts that's holding the mounts. Alright guys, let's go ahead and take off this valley cover. So it looks like I'm gonna have one issue. It's gonna be with the oil pressure sensor. I'm gonna have to unscrew that to get to that last bolt. Let's go. Guys, as you can see, the valley cover, and now we're going to put on motor lift. So basically guys, I took out the valley cover. Now what I gotta do is install the lift plate, which goes in the place of this, so the motor can lift up even Steven. Let's do it. So as you can see guys, I took off the valley cover. Now I just gotta install the lift plate so I can pull this thing out. You can see the cam. Hopefully nothing more is damaged. So let's go ahead and get into that guys. you can see, guys, I pulled the motor out. Now that I have it all wide open, I'm gonna work on painting the frame, getting some things done while the motor and transmission's out. Give me some time to figure out what I need to do as far as putting in another motor. It wasn't too bad doing it by myself. Here's the motor right here, guys. Wasn't too hard. Just got to take your time. Make sure that every move that you're making is calculated so you won't have any issues. And it's possible to do it by yourself. So yeah, guys, pretty much that's all it is, taking the motor out. We did a pretty good job of getting that done. Made it pretty efficient. So now I'm gonna end this video, and the next one should be, I'm gonna put a shift kit on my transmission, hopefully make it a stage 2 so that way it doesn't mess up. I want a transmission that's gonna be able to hold up to the abuse that I'm about to give it. So with that being said, we'll see you on the next one, guys.